Are you looking for the best motherboards? In this video, we will look at some of the 5 best motherboards on the market. Before we get started with our video, we have included links in the description. So make sure you check those out to see which one is in your budget range. Number 1. MSI MPG X870E Carbon Wi-Fi. As we found in our Ryzen 7 9800X 3D review, this premium motherboard is the perfect partner for the current best gaming CPU. For a start, it looks beautiful, with a swirling RGB dragon on the I/O panel shield, and you even get lighting on one of the M.2 SSD heatsinks. It's packed to the gills with features too, including 2 USB-C 4.0 ports, a pair of USB-C 3.2 Gen 2 ports, and a massive count of 9 USB-A ports. MSI has really gone to town with the toolless access as well. We particularly like the push-button control to unlock your graphics card from its PCIe slot, which saves fiddling around with the normal latch. Likewise, you can also fit an SSD and heatsink without having to reach for a screwdriver. We also use this board to overclock the 9800X 3D, and like the easy options in the EFI for enabling AMD overclocking. You can easily get your CPU boosting to 5.4 GHz in games with this board, just by changing a few settings. Thanks to its use of AMD's latest X870E chipset, there are also no worries about PCIe 5.0 SSDs stealing lanes from your graphics card, and you even get a pair of PCIe 5.0 SSD M.2 ports, complete with heatsinks. This board isn't cheap, but it's a great foundation for a high-end AMD PC. Number 2. Gigabyte Aorus Elite X870 Wi-Fi 7 ICE. If you want the best motherboard to screw into a frosty white PC case, then look no further, as Gigabyte's attention to detail on this board's white finish is superb. It's not just the PCB that's white, but also the rear I/O panel, sockets, and heatsinks. Even the postcode display is white. To use the words of Spinal Tap, it's none more white. The Gigabyte Aorus Elite X870 Wi-Fi 7 ICE isn't just a pretty PCB either. Based on AMD's latest X870 chipset, it offers an ideal home to one of AMD's latest Zen 5 CPUs, such as the Ryzen 7 9800X 3D, and it also offers a surprisingly packed feature set for its price. This includes 10 USB-A ports, plus a pair of USB-C 4.0 ports on the rear. You even get 3 PCIe 5.0 M.2 ports for installing one of the best gaming SSD options, although some of them will take lanes from your graphics card, so check the manual before you install your SSD. Toolless features are good as well, requiring no need for a screwdriver to install an M.2 SSD, while Gigabyte's Easy Latch Plus button enables you to release your graphics card without having to scrape your hands fiddling with the usual locking latch on your PCIe slot. To top it all off, this attractive motherboard isn't even that expensive. You can get the same raw CPU performance from a cheaper board based on the B650 chipset, of course. But this motherboard's price of $289 offers decent value for its feature set and good looks. Number 3. Asus ROG Crosshair X870E Hero. If money is no object, and you want the very best gaming motherboard for your AMD Ryzen 9000 rig, then this feature-packed board is for you. Asus has pulled out all the stops to make the ROG Crosshair X870E Hero, with the main showpiece being a dazzling RGB light show on the I/O shield. There are plenty of other great features as well though, including 2 USB-C 4.0 ports on the back, and a USB-C front panel header that supplies up to 60W, meaning you could quickly charge your Steam Deck or laptop from your PC's front panel. The tool-free features are also excellent, and include an ingenious way of securing and removing your graphics card without needing to fiddle with a latch or even push a button. You just need to pull it up at the right angle. Asus' latest EFI design is also superb, showing you a map of your motherboard, and you just click on the bit you want to tweak to find its settings. It's very far from cheap, particularly in the US, and it won't be any quicker than a cheaper X870 motherboard. But this is a truly premium, feature-rich motherboard if you can afford it. Number 4. Asus TUF Gaming Z890 Plus Wi-Fi. While the new Intel Arrow Lake lineup didn't set the world alight when it comes to gaming performance, there are plenty of other reasons to consider building a PC based on one of Intel's new Core Ultra 200 CPUs. If your priority is getting the fastest multi-threaded performance possible, perhaps for video encoding or 3D rendering work, Then Intel's latest CPUs are ideal, and they don't draw much power either. If you're planning to build an Intel Aero Lake system, you will need a motherboard that uses the new Intel LGA1851 socket, as the LGA1700 motherboards for Intel's last 3 CPU generations won't work with the new chips. Our top choice here is the Asus TUF Gaming Z890 Plus Wi-Fi, which we used for testing in our Core Ultra 265K review. Despite its wallet-friendly price, this motherboard has a solid range of features, including easy tool-free access to the M.2 slots, while the chunky PCIe 5.0 SSD heatsink has an easy release button to make it easy to install your fast SSD. Similarly, the hinged latch release system on the far right of the board makes it really easy to free your graphics card from its PCIe slot. Meanwhile, there are plenty of expansion slots and several USB ports on the rear panel, including 6 USB-A ports and 2 USB-C ports, one of which supports Thunderbolt 4. There's not much in the way of RGB lighting, with just a little bit of underglow in the top right corner, but we also quite like this board's smart, black appearance. What's more, this motherboard doesn't demand a silly price, costing just under $300. However, we recommend updating this motherboard's BIOS to the latest version, to avoid compatibility issues with Windows. Read our guide on how to flash your BIOS to see how this is done. Number 5. Asus ROG Maximus Z790 Dark Hero. Asus absolutely nailed it with this superb Intel LGA 1700 motherboard, which we've been using for all our Intel 14th Gen CPU reviews, and which our hardware editor also uses as the motherboard in his own PC, pictured above to show off the lights in the dark. This premium motherboard isn't just packed with features, but it also looks fantastic. The big eye-catching feature, of course, is that bright, glowing ROG panel on top of the I/O shield. But there are plenty of other exciting gadgets with this board that make it a great home for a Core i9 14900K. For a start, the 16X PCIe 5.0 slot means it can happily run a next-gen GPU, possibly including the NVIDIA RTX 5000 series, at full speed. Meanwhile, the PCIe 5.0 M.2 slot ensures you can add a high-speed SSD, while a further 4 PCIe 4.0 M.2 slots mean you'll have plenty of room for all the drives you could want. You also get support for the latest Wi-Fi 7 standard, and the audio quality from the ESS9218 DAC is superb. Other handy features include the tool-free M.2 ports, which mean you don't have to fiddle with a tiny screw to install your drives. The same also goes for the Q release system for the top graphics slot, where you push a button to release your graphics card from its slot, saving the hassle of having to fiddle around under a massive GPU cooler. There are loads of USB ports as well, including a pair of Thunderbolt 4 USB-C ports, and the front panel USB-C connector can supply up to 60W for quickly charging your devices. Mainly, though, it just looks fantastic. You can get the same CPU performance from a cheaper motherboard, of course, and the ROG Maximus Z790 Dark Hero is very far from cheap, but this motherboard is a great basis for a high-end Intel 14th Gen gaming rig.